Hello, everybody. Welcome to chapter 210 on my RLDR Custom Creations YouTube channel. It is the weekend edition. And as you can see, I'm standing by a scroll saw again. But look at this thing. Isn't it amazing? The saw is all crisp and new to me, and the stand is brand new. It's awesome. But anyway, this is scroll saw with a significant plot twist. So if you want to see what that is, all you need to do is stay tuned. Well, as I said in the intro, there is a little bit of a plot twist to this one. Yeah, it's scroll saw related, but I'm going to show you a jig that I made for a scroll saw. And also, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story first. So, first the story, and then we're going to go over to the other clean area of the shop and show you that other scroll saw. But okay, this goes back in my teaching career. Remember, I spent 32 years in the public school system teaching shop for all but 2 years of it, all but 1 year. Yeah. First year I taught everything else, but they hired me because they knew the shop teacher was retiring. So that was pretty cool. Our local community made an investment in me, which I really appreciated. Um, I also was one of those teachers that believed that all kids had the right to experience working in the shop. And that meant working in the shop with kids with disabilities. I came to look at disabilities quite differently. And one thing that frustrated me sometimes I'd sit at meetings with other teachers, and it's nobody's fault here. That's what was done. But it bothered me that we always kind of focused on the things that kids couldn't do. Whereas I like to look at the other side of that coin. What can they do? So, fortunately, in those early years, our school division was a little smaller and it allowed for more individualized programming. And also at the time, this was kind of a perfect storm. We had one of the consultants at central office had a really good attitude, in my opinion, about working with kids with special needs and disabilities. I'm going to quit using the term disabilities because I'd almost say it's abilities. Like once you find what those kids can do, there's all kinds of good things that can happen. So anyway, I'm going to tell you a little story about a former student of mine, and I'm going to call him Bob for the sake of this discussion. That, of course, is not his real name. Bob was an amazing student. I learned so much from him. Um, Bob had spina bifida, so he was in a wheelchair most of the time. I see if I remember correctly, they had a type of standing device for him as well, like that he came with a few times. But most of the time, it was his wheelchair, and I realized what his limitations were, and basically, I decided, well, he should work on the scroll saw because he would have come to our school as a grade seven student, and all the grade sevens used the scroll saw. So that was the thing we introduced him to as a scroll saw. Um, Bob was a unique person. You know, I'd see him, I'd go meet the students when they came. He was from the other community that we worked with. And he'd come wheeling down the hall. And fortunately, he had a wonderful educational assistant with him that worked. This made this all work. It's like I say, it's a team effort. No one part of this would have worked without all the others. So Bob would come wheeling down the hallway, and one thing that just impressed me so much, if anybody in the world had a right to be bitter and cranky, it was Bob. And yet, how did Bob handle his situation? Every day that I saw him, I don't think I ever saw him without this big ear to ear Kool Aid smile on his face. Like he was just a happy guy. And he was so wonderful to visit with and talk to. And he was one of those kids that, given how much I knew they were going to put into it, I was willing to match that and do what I had to do. So the next year, he wanted to start building some of the smaller little furniture style projects that we did. This was still in the days when you had DVDs. So I had DVD cases and stuff we built at the grade 8 level, but it was out of pine and it really was bandsaw work. And bandsaw would have been very difficult for Bob because he would have had to stand. Well, that wasn't something he could do easily. So I convinced our educational coordinator that I was going to modify or make a scroll saw so he could do bandsaw style cuts. So that was the first one. Eventually, I did modify a bandsaw for him, and our educational consultant at central office, unfortunately, she had a very good memory. So she says, "What's changed? How come you want to make a bandsaw for him now?" And I just kind of, well, okay, I was wrong. So yes, I did build a bandsaw for Bob. I'm not sure even where it is now. It might be in the community still. What I should do is track it down and show it to you because it's kind of cool, and it allowed him to do some pretty major woodworking. But anyway, back to the story. So Bob was always a great guy to work with. Just made you want to do more, that so that he could enjoy the shop more. And eventually, I made a scroll saw jig that makes the scroll saw function like a bandsaw. But yeah, those were the good old days. Eventually, as further amalgamations happened, they the powers that be, first of all, they wouldn't let me modify anything because then all of a sudden there was liability involved. And it's funny, nobody cared about liability when I had 33 kids in the shop, but by myself. But anyway, um, yeah, though that all changed. So I'd say the last 10 years of my career, I just didn't get to see students with special needs anymore because they were always directed away from the shop, which I think is a major mistake. But anyway, um, I think that's about enough for the story. And unfortunately, a few years ago, Bob passed away, which made me sad when I heard it. And yeah, what an amazing guy. Uh, what a testament to still being an awesome person in the midst of all that adversity that he faced. Okay, enough of that. Let's head over to the scroll saw that's set up the way I would have set it up for Bob. Well, here it is. I basically put the deck of a bandsaw onto a scroll saw. And what this allowed Bob to do is to rip and cross cut, with a fence, with a miter gauge. So I made a miter slot here, and you could cross cut as well. So this piece or this stand is what, about 26 and let's see, about 24 or so. Now, this was designed for a DeWalt DW788 scroll saw. We had, in fact, like I said, this was the perfect storm in our school division. Our, our school coordinator tapped into budget that that we could use for things like this, and we bought a brand new DeWalt scroll saw for Bob. Well, everybody else used it too because Bob was only there one day a week. So it got used by other students as well. It wasn't a dedicated piece of equipment. But I would put this on, and this attaches. There's kind of a goofy way it attaches. I didn't want to drill any holes in the scroll saw deck and make it more permanent. I guess a guy could have done that. But and I'll show it to you. There's just a piece of steel under here, a 1x1 piece of tube that goes from about here to there and clamps it onto the table. Now, what that allows is it allows some flexibility. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the bandsaw at all, but the concept of blade drift, well, that occurs with scroll saws as well. And so when I set it up, whatever blade was in it, I would I would do some test cuts and set it so that it was uh, cutting parallel to the fence, basically. And that worked really well. Now, when we had Bob in the shop there, I would use coping saw blades in here. They were a little bigger and a little tougher because at the beginning, as he's getting to learn to use it, it was a little harder on the blade and stuff. Then eventually he learned and became really good at it. So there was a bit of a learning curve there, and that's totally understandable. So the fence, this is just kind of a copy of Wiesmeyer, or however you pronounce it. That's how I pronounce it. And then I took the rail here. This is all made out of white oak. It's just your standard kind of U shape. The front's a little taller. And I inlaid a piece of metal here so that the adjuster wouldn't always just dig into the wood and make it impossible to set at certain positions. For example, if you're cutting a lot at, say, 3.5 inches and you tighten it, and it would leave a little divot there. And if you want to cut 3 5/8, then you may not be able to because it might want to slide into that divot. So this made it a lot more accurate. And I'm amazed that it fits this saw. Like I said, it was designed for the DeWalt scroll saw. And the other thing with this is, remember, Bob's in a wheelchair. So that the stand for that DeWalt saw, I built a custom stand. I welded it together for him. That was considerably lower, so he could wheel his chair under, and his knees were kind of like mine are now, just right underneath. And then he had good position. His arms were slightly down like this, and he had really good position to work on the saw. Plus, of course, push sticks and all the amenities that I would have used at a bandsaw with grade 8 students would have been here as well. And the added benefit, the one thing that another piece of the puzzle that made this work for Bob was having excellent EA support, having a person with him that could just watch him and make sure. And then I didn't get tied to one place in the shop. I could circulate and help the other kids and get them going. So that was a perfect world, and I didn't realize how perfect it was until it was gone. So, but I did manage to build a couple pieces of equipment for Bob, and like I say, I really truly enjoyed working with him, and I learned a lot about life from Bob. So that was really cool. But yeah, this again, it's just a basic. It's built with MDF and covered with plastic laminate on both sides. I must have had a lot of blue left over. Laminate like this used to be cheap. I used to go into some stores in Saskatoon and buy a 2 foot by 4 foot piece for like $5. Like it was ridiculously cheap at one time. So not that way anymore. But anyway, and then I cut the miter gauge or the miter slot for the standard miter gauge. And again, that all worked really, really well. And as I already stated, we used a heavier blade, and I have coping saw blades here somewhere, but I couldn't find them. So this is just a number 9 scroll saw blade. So I hope that that's going to do the trick. But I'm going to set this aside. There we go. And I'm going to show you how this works. Well, enough of me talking. Let's see what it does. Now, as I've stated already, we would use a coping saw blade in here, and this blade holder setup isn't working really good on this saw yet. So hopefully I can make this cut, and I'll have to go fairly slow. And yes, I do have push sticks here when I need them at the end. So this is how Bob would have set up. And like I said before, he'd have a lower stand, so his knees were right under the table, and the saw worked really good for him. But let's see if it still works. You know what? Made a bit of a mistake already. Bob would have been doing it more like this. Wow, let's see what we got. Look at that, eh? Nice straight cut with his scroll saw. So that's really what this saw was designed to do. And then, of course, when you're marking something and making it to the right length, then we had the miter gauge that Bob learned to use as well. Let's make a quick cut. Okay, there you go. I'm going to leave this in the video in real time so you can see about how long it takes to cut. And I don't know do I have my little square here? I never even bothered setting this up. And look at that, it's pretty much bang on. Okay, the table isn't quite square because I didn't get it set properly after this was on. But anyway, I think that's enough cutting to get the point across. Like I said, I can't say enough positive about Bob. Bob was one of those kind of once in a career students that comes along and reminds you of what your duties as a teacher are. And I would have built anything I could for him so that he could enjoy this craft. Unfortunately, often with people with disabilities like Bob had, he passed away a few years ago. And that was sad for me when I heard that because he had been such an exceptional character to work with. But anyway, as far as the modifications go, I have this around my yard yet. I never get rid of anything. If there's somebody out there that knows somebody that would be able to use this and put this to good use, I would consider um, either lending it to them or giving it to them. I don't really want anything for this. And I don't anticipate working with students with special abilities, let's put it that way, in my current shop program. It would have to be one on one. I'm no longer comfortable with the days of the 33-to-1 student ratios. So, this way, like I say, if there is somebody out there in YouTube land that knows of somebody that could benefit from this, apparently it fits on most. Yeah, I've got a little bit of space here. So, a 16-inch scroll saw. But if it was something that you were going to use in your shop and I would donate it to you, or you could cut it and do whatever you wanted with it. But it shows how if you have the right people in place, I needed to be willing to make the modification. Our central office person needed to see the vision, and she did. The EA needed to be willing to work with Bob, and she was. But most importantly, Bob himself. Bob brought the attitude and the skills to be able to use this to make all kinds of cool little things. And again, that ear-to-ear Kool-Aid smile at the end of the day was even a little bigger. So I just, hats off to Bob and what he taught me over my years of teaching. So anyway, that pretty much brings the weekend edition to a close. This was a cool thing to make, and if you know somebody who struggles with basic equipment because of the cards that they've been dealt in life, don't just say, no, you can't do that. Sit down with them. Get them thinking about, okay, what can you do? What motions can you do? Notice I'm turning right away because I know a turner or two that has a special setup for them. And if you want to see one, I'm not going to mention any names, but go to the Hub City Turners YouTube channel and you'll find an individual there that does some awesome work that works a lot harder than the rest of us. So anyway, with that in mind, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you on the weekly edition. Take care.